You've spent weeks preparing the business case. The numbers are solid, the ROI is clear. But when the budget committee meets, your project gets sidelined by a competing initiative with weaker financials but stronger backing. Sound familiar? Here's the reality most executives learn the hard way: budget battles aren't won on spreadsheets alone. They're won through influence. The difference between securing resources for your critical initiatives and watching them fail often comes down to one thing: your understanding of organizational power dynamics. Most leaders fail in these high-stakes negotiations because they focus exclusively on the content of their proposal while ignoring the context of power. They rely on formal authority or logical argumentation, not realizing that true influence operates on three distinct levels. Today, we're going to break down the three pillars of ethical power that separate effective leaders from frustrated managers: structural power, which is about your position and formal authority; relational power, which comes from your network and alliances; and informational power, which stems from your control of critical knowledge. The promise is straightforward. By the end of this video, you'll have a clear framework for how to proactively build and wield influence to secure resources, drive strategic initiatives, and build stronger alliances, all while maintaining your integrity. This isn't about manipulation, it's about understanding the rules of the game so you can play to win for your team and your organization. Let's start with the most visible yet often misunderstood form of power: the structural dimension. If you're new here, please subscribe and like, because I share tips to help you improve your career. Many executives make the critical mistake of believing their title alone should carry the day. They walk into a budget meeting expecting their formal authority as a department head to guarantee approval. But structural power is far more nuanced than your position on an org chart. It's about how you leverage that position to create favorable conditions long before the actual negotiation begins. Your formal authority provides the entry ticket, but it won't win the debate. The strategic importance of agenda setting cannot be overstated. Who controls what gets discussed, and in what order, holds immense power. If you can influence the meeting agenda to frame your proposal within a broader strategic context, you've already gained significant ground. For instance, instead of letting your project be discussed as a standalone budget request, work behind the scenes to position it as essential to achieving one of the CEO's top 3 annual priorities. This reframing moves the conversation from "can we afford this" to "can we afford not to do this?" That subtle shift changes the entire dynamic of the discussion. Alignment with organizational priorities is the cornerstone of structural power. Before you even draft your proposal, conduct a thorough analysis of recent all-hands meetings, earnings calls, and internal strategy documents. What language does leadership use? What metrics are they celebrating? What problems keep them up at night? Your proposal must speak directly to these priorities using the organization's own vocabulary. When executives see that your initiative directly supports what they're already being measured on, resistance diminishes significantly. You're no longer asking for resources, you're offering a solution to their pressing challenges. Building coalitions across functional lines is where structural power becomes actionable. Identify which other departments would benefit from your project's success, even indirectly. Perhaps your new marketing automation platform would provide cleaner data to the sales team, or your supply chain optimization would help customer service reduce delivery complaints. Schedule one-on-one meetings with these peers well in advance. Discuss mutual benefits and secure their verbal support. When you present your proposal, mention these cross-functional advantages and, if possible, have your allies speak up in support during the meeting. A unified front across departments demonstrates that your initiative has organizational-wide value, making it much harder to dismiss. Timing your request is another critical structural lever. The corporate calendar is filled with natural rhythms, quarterly business reviews, annual planning cycles, post-earnings announcement periods. Understand these cycles and identify the moments of maximum openness versus maximum risk aversion. Submitting a significant funding request right after a missed earnings target is likely doomed. But presenting the same proposal during a strategic planning session focused on growth initiatives stands a much better chance. Pay attention to organizational mood and momentum. Is the company in expansion mode or cost-cutting mode? Your timing should align with the prevailing winds. The transition from structural to relational power is where many influence efforts break down. You can have the best positioned proposal with perfect timing, but if you haven't built the relationships that will carry it through unexpected objections, you're vulnerable. Structure creates the foundation, but relationships determine the outcome. This brings us to the second pillar, the human element of influence. If you're finding this helpful, please subscribe and like because it helps us create content that matters to you. Also, if you want to take your skills further, check out our executive education and executive coaching programs at execbeat.com. Every organization has two structures operating simultaneously, the formal org chart that defines reporting relationships and the informal network that determines where influence actually flows. The most successful leaders understand both, but they master the latter. Your relational currency, the trust, credibility, and goodwill you've built with key stakeholders often matters more than your formal authority when decisions get made behind closed doors. Understanding the informal network begins with mapping the true centers of influence. These aren't always the people with the biggest titles. Sometimes it's the long-tenured executive assistant who knows how to get things done, the technical expert whose opinion carries weight, or the cross-functional manager who has everyone's ear. Pay attention to who people seek out for advice, whose ideas gain traction quickly, and who seems to have pre-meeting conversations that shape outcomes. This invisible architecture of influence determines which projects move forward and which stall indefinitely. Identifying key influencers and decision-makers requires both observation and deliberate conversation. Before a major decision point, ask yourself whose support is essential. Whose opposition could be fatal? Who are the neutral parties that could be swayed? Then, don't wait for the formal meeting to engage them. Schedule informal coffees or brief check-ins to share your perspective and, more importantly, to listen to theirs. Understand their priorities, concerns, and what success looks like from their vantage point. This intelligence is invaluable for tailoring your approach and anticipating objections. The art of reciprocal value creation moves beyond transactional exchanges to building genuine partnerships. The question shouldn't be what can I get from this person, but rather how can we create value together? Perhaps you can provide data that helps their department look good, offer your team support on one of their initiatives, or connect them with a useful contact outside the organization. These deposits into the relational bank account create goodwill that pays dividends when you need support. The key is to give value without immediate expectation of return. The reciprocity will naturally follow over time. Building trust through consistent delivery is the foundation of all relational capital. Trust isn't built in dramatic gestures but through small, repeated demonstrations of competence and character. Do you follow through on commitments? Are you transparent about challenges? Do you give credit where it's due? When people know they can rely on your word and your work, they're far more likely to support your initiatives, even when they involve some risk. This trust becomes particularly crucial when you need to navigate the inevitable conflicts that arise in matrixed organizations. Navigating conflicting interests without burning bridges is where relational skill meets diplomatic finesse. You will occasionally find yourself advocating for something that another leader opposes. The mistake is treating this as a win-lose scenario. Instead, approach it as an opportunity to understand their constraints and find creative solutions. Ask questions like, "Help me understand what concerns you about this approach," or "What would need to be true for this to work for both our teams?" This positions you as a collaborative problem solver rather than an adversary. Even when you don't get everything you want, preserving the relationship ensures you'll have influence in future discussions. The transition from relationships to information is where influence becomes execution. Strong relationships may get your proposal on the agenda, but compelling information gets it funded and implemented. Relationships open doors, but information seals the deal. This brings us to the third and final pillar, turning data into decisive advantage. Having the right relationships gets you a seat at the table, but it's the information you bring that determines whether you leave with what you came for. Many leaders make the mistake of drowning decision-makers in raw data, assuming that more information equals more persuasion. The real power lies in moving beyond data to strategic insight. Your goal isn't to prove you've done your homework, it's to make the decision obvious and easy for others to support. How you frame information is often more important than the information itself. The same set of facts can tell dramatically different stories depending on what you emphasize. Instead of leading with cost, lead with value. Instead of focusing on implementation challenges, highlight risk mitigation. Connect your data points to the strategic priorities we discussed earlier. For instance, don't just present the ROI of a new technology platform, show how it directly enables the customer satisfaction metric that the board is tracking this quarter. You're not just sharing numbers, you're creating a narrative that aligns with what decision-makers already care about. The power of anticipating objections cannot be overstated. Before any critical meeting, conduct a pre-mortem. Gather your team and ask, if this proposal fails, why will it have failed? Identify every possible objection, financial, operational, political, and prepare a concise, data-backed response for each. When an objection arises, you're not caught off guard, you're prepared with a counter that demonstrates thorough consideration. This preparation transforms potential weaknesses into strengths, showing that you've thought through the implications from multiple angles. Knowing when to share information is as strategic as what you share. Revealing your entire hand too early can invite unnecessary scrutiny or allow opponents to mobilize. Instead, share information progressively. Start with the high-level strategic alignment to build initial support. Provide detailed financials only to those who need them, when they need them. This controlled release maintains engagement and allows you to address concerns as they arise, rather than overwhelming stakeholders with complexity up front. Creating information gaps that work in your favor is an advanced technique. This involves strategically highlighting what isn't known, but could be known if your proposal moves forward. For example, our current reports don't show us which marketing channels drive enterprise clients versus SMB clients. This new system would close that gap, potentially revealing millions in untapped revenue. You're not just solving a known problem, you're revealing hidden opportunities that only your initiative can uncover. Remember, these three pillars, structural, relational, and informational, work together as an integrated system. Structure creates the platform, relationships build the coalition, and information provides the compelling reason to act. The ethical imperative is clear: view power not as manipulation but as responsibility, the ability to mobilize resources toward important outcomes. For your next budget cycle, focus on one pillar where you're weakest and strengthen it. Subscribe for more executive strategies that turn organizational complexity into competitive advantage. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and like because it helps us bring you more free videos. And if you're ready to grow your career, visit execbeat.com to learn about our executive education and coaching.